Nice. So let's look at the IFAC Code of Ethics. Who is a professional? A professional is a person having specialized knowledge through intense education and experience. Okay, like a doctor, accountant, and so on and so forth. So the IFAC Code of Ethics, we know them, right? The principles. Now, I told you when you get a scenario, it's either something is wrong, right? And that's what they'll give you in your case. This thing is not today that I'm going to talk about them. You know them. Who here doesn't know the meaning of this PICO? Who here doesn't know PICO? Professional behavior, integrity, confidentiality, competence, and duty and objectivity. Who here doesn't know? Everybody knows, right?
PICO.
I know you all know PICO, right? You all know what these things mean. But do you know what people are lacking in corporate reporting, advanced audit, and then all the other courses? They do not know how to apply this model, right? If you watch the pre-intervention video, I taught you how to apply this. Do you remember? Who remember IWA?
Yeah, remember.
You remember IWA? What is IWA?
Yeah.
Issue.
Issues, why, and actions.
Why is there an issue and the action you want to take, right? Okay. So let's look at something here. Let me give you a framework to deal with ethics when you get it in the scenario. The first step is to ask yourself what is wrong, right? What is wrong? That is the issue, right? Okay, so always identify what is wrong. Once you identify what is wrong, you ask yourself, did the person do it intentionally? Or he did it what? Unintentionally. Do you get it? Are you all following? If somebody did something intentionally, that means he had intent to fraud. If somebody did something unintentionally, that means it was what? An error. This is how I do my thing. This one is not anywhere. It is my own framework that I've developed over time. If you see somebody using it, add Prof TM by it. Is that okay? It's my trademark. Now, if something is intentional, that means something was incentivizing you to do it. Nobody does anything intentionally, keke. It's either for self-interest or for some other interest. True or false? So if the person did it intentionally, that means that he is breaching either integrity or objectivity. Do you get it? It means that the person is not what? Independent. These two things are what we call independent. Okay? And if he's not independent, it means that there are some things which caused him to not be independent, right? And these causes are what we call the threats. So it's either for his own self-interest, okay? So we can use the threat, we can call it what? Massive, okay? So it's either he has his own self-interest, he's checking his own work, also. He was promoting the client. He was intimidated.
Safi.
Okay, so you can use Safim. Okay. He was familiarity, or he was acting like a manager to the entity. And this management threat only works for accountants in practice, that's auditors. Where an auditor is seen to be acting like management or CEO or a board member, which is not his job. It's a management threat, okay? So anytime something is wrong and the person does it intentionally, it's either he's breaching, hiding something, integrity, he's not being honest, or he's not being objective, biased, because he's enjoying some bonuses, or they promised him something. Right? Are we okay? Or if he did it unintentionally, that means he's breaching competence and what? Competence and what?
I don't have a bone.
Professional decay.
It doesn't have a bone. So if you drop an album, professional.
You get the idea? And when somebody breaches competence and due care, it means that something's caused him, right? some factors caused him not to what? Not to adhere by professional competence and due care. One, so remember rate, right? One, maybe he lacked enough resources to be competent. He didn't have enough money to do trainings. Two, he lacked sufficient information. Three, he lacked sufficient time. Right? So anytime you get an ethical scenario, you ask yourself, what is wrong? That's the issue. Why is that an issue? It's where you consider whether the person did it intentionally or unintentionally, right? Then if it is intentional, and you must always talk all the time because you don't know what actually happened unless they give you why the person did it. Do you get it? Then anytime issues of something that must be disclosed come up, in terms of this one, you must disclose, and disclosure has to be voluntary or mandatory or compulsory, right? Mandatory disclosure is where one, the person has been given a court order. The court has requested you to disclose. Two, maybe a case of money laundering, right? You see the person is laundering money. Three, drug trafficking, maybe drugs, okay? Four, maybe sex trade. He's selling people for prostitution. Terrorism, right? Tax evasion. Okay, these ones, all these ones, you see, it's compulsory for you to disclose, right? But when it's voluntary disclosure, one, you should have asked permission from the client, right? If the client has given you permission, then you can disclose. If there's a legal or professional right to do so, if in your profession, are you getting it? Or legally, you are supposed to disclose, not so. Are we okay? If it's of public interest to do so, if you think there's a need for you to disclose, you can, right? So when it comes to confidentiality, assess. Confidentiality is when you do not disclose information without appropriate permission, not so. Or people always talk about the first one, or use info for your personal gain. Are we okay? So when you get a case, check if the person is using the information he gained for his own personal benefit. Makes sense? Makes sense. Now, a breach in all these constitutes a breach in professional behavior. So anytime you're answering ethics and you go this way, you hit on all the points. And me, when I teach a student ethics, if it's 10, you should get 10 over 10 because I speak on everything. And that's the trick I use. Over time, I've come to see the best way to answer ethical questions and get the full mark. Are we okay? So any breach in any of these, any of the ethical is still breaching professional behavior because professional behavior is doing something that does not put the profession into disrepute or that does not discredit the profession. So if you are not objective, you do not have integrity, you disclose information anyhow, you do not exercise competence and due care, it means that you have not exhibited professional behavior. You are doing something that will make people insult the profession. So anytime you do ethics and you do not include professional behavior, you still do not get a full mark because a breach in any of the factors is still a breach in professional behavior. Okay, then you can go for it to talk about the consequences of what? The consequences of what? Unethical behavior. I hope you are all following. Are you getting the style? So consequences
Yes,
of
sir.
unethical behavior. If you behave unethically, what do you face? One, imprisonment, right? Not so. You can be imprisoned. Two,
Penalty.
and fine. Penalties, right? Three, reputational damage. I hope you are writing. Four, withdrawal of what? Of certificate. Right? Your professional certificate is taken from you by ICA. Five, sometimes it could even lead to loss of what? Business, right? Collapse of company, right? Also, unethical behavior in worst cases could lead to death, or loss of lives. Also, be out dignity come fancho.
All right.
So we're ready to talk about this, that despite what Mr. Charles did, these are the consequences of unethical behavior. So these are all parts of the why. Then what is the action? Which are the safeguards? Okay. Now, every ethical behavior or any unethical situation you see, right? Always learn safeguards, especially now corporate reporting and audits. All the time, they will require safeguards from you, okay? Because of how you should be. And safeguards, there are 3 types of safeguard. ICA itself, are you getting it?
Professional.
The profession itself, are you getting it? Provides safeguards. That is why you are writing the exam first, right? It's a safeguard to ensure that you have the requisite knowledge, to ensure competence and due care, right? We have safeguards provided by the work environment. Oh. Yes, sir, it distorts the video. You're watching and there are sounds all over. So we have safeguards provided by the work environment. Okay. Like instituting internal controls, training of staff, not so. Appropriate what? Appropriate quality control, not so. Do you get it? Internal audits, risk assessment and monitoring, not so. Establishing an audit what? Committee and all that, right? You know, all these things can help you check risk in the what? In the organization, which acts like safeguards. Then we have the 3rd type of safeguards, which are what? On
Individual.
assignment level, right? So we are saying that on each individual assignment, we can rotate staff. Make sure that if there's a conflict of interest, it's not the same staff we are using. We can do proper direction, proper supervision, and also proper review. Also, all these things are what? All these things are safeguards. We can take out some stuff. We can decline work. Also, we can even seek legal advice. Okay, these are all safeguards. Even within the work environment, you can even talk about corporate governance. Remember, corporate governance is a control mechanism to check how companies are governed. I hope it makes sense. So these things, some people are only, when they say safeguards in exam, people only think about the individual one. Okay, ensuring that the person withdraws his shares, ensuring that we rotate the audit client. Those ones are also safeguards too. But you see, students forget all about the one provided by the profession, which is like trainings by ICA, post-chartered diploma,
CPDs.
CPDs, and also the exam itself, right? And all others. These are all safeguards provided by the profession. Makes sense. I hope we learned something. So when you go,
Sir,
yes, boss.
please, can you scroll up so that I get the consequence, the under consequence?
Mhm.
Okay, loss of business. Okay, there. Okay. Okay, I'm okay, sir.
Okay, so there's one issue around professional ethics. That is NOCLAR. Responding to non-compliance with laws and regulation. Okay.
Hello, Prof.
Yes, boss.
Yeah, with respect to the safeguards, I understand whenever they ask such a question, first of all, you need to look at the internal procedures. And then when after you have exhausted all the internal procedures, then you go to the external. That is where the legal action has to come in. I don't know whether that is the right procedure.
Of course, but it doesn't really matter under pressure. But
Okay.
you are not taking legal action. I said legal advice.
Okay.
Legal action is not a safeguard.
Okay.
Okay. Are we okay? But it's good to start from within. If you don't solve your own problems, who can come and solve it for you? So it's a good approach.
Okay.
So we talk about NOCLAR. Non-compliance with laws and regulations comprises acts of omission or commission, intentional and unintentional, which are contrary to the prevailing laws or regulations committed by following parties. If you do not comply, right? You, the accountants, the managers, the directors, or other employees that are working in the organization. Now, the laws in the contemplation of NOCLAR covered a wide range of legislation, including fraud, corruption, and bribery, securities market, trading, data protection, and all that. When it comes to non-compliance with laws and regulations, accountants have a responsibility to respond appropriately. So we are saying that in the course of your work as an accountant, okay, you are coming to audit me, fine. But if you spot any non-compliance, you have to respond appropriately. Okay, so IFAC has recognized the importance of addressing NOCLAR and has established what? Guidelines for accountants in such situations. If you become aware of an act of non-compliance, you're obliged to take an action, right? And what actions are you supposed to take? Reporting the matter to the appropriate authorities, even if it means breaching the principle of what?
Confidentiality.
And I know you know the circumstances under which you are supposed to breach confidentiality. I gave you two, mandatory and voluntary, right?
Voluntary.
What is the mandatory ones?
Court order, money laundering, drug trafficking,
The trafficking.
terrorism, tax evasion, sex trade.
And there's another one called treason. Who knows what treason means? Betraying your nation, right? When somebody betrays his country, it's called treason. Then voluntary one.
Permission, public interest, and legal rights.
Legal or professional right to do so. Okay. Nice. So the principle of confidentiality should not hinder the reporting of NOCLAR, as it is considered to be in public interest to do so. It is no longer acceptable for accountants to turn what? A blind eye to NOCLAR. Before, we used to turn a blind eye because that was not our job, right? It is, we all learned that it is the duty of management to detect and prevent fraud, right? And error. Is that not so? And non-compliance. Now, assume before, when auditors spotted it, they ignored it. When accountants spot it, they ignore. But now you have to, when you spot it, you have to disclose it, right? And strike a balance between the two. So in the exam, they can ask you, what is the accountant's responsibility towards NOCLAR? Yes, answer me. What is the accountant's responsibility towards NOCLAR? Hmm?
The accountants are tasked to
So they are obliged to report nuclear issues to the appropriate authority.
Okay. Okay. Now, we look at